This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hey y'all, my name is Cassie and I am the creator of Pieces of Scrap, and in today's video we are going to continue where we left off in my last video and continue reviewing Jenna Tattoo's No Sew Mini Amigurumi pattern book. Last video, if you may recall, we reviewed all of the on the land section, and you can see all of those finished plushies behind me, but just know that we won't really be touching on any of those plushies besides comparing those plushies like finished time to the plushies in the following sections that we will be reviewing today. But I just wanted to mention that I really enjoyed the first section of the book, and I am excited to try out the rest of these patterns. In the first video of this series, I was able to review 13 patterns, all of which are in the On the Land section of the book. In this video today, we're going to be looking at the In the Water section of the book, which has 2, 4, 6, 7 patterns in it total. And then we will also be looking a little bit at the On the Farm section, just to kind of even out the videos a little bit so that I'm not covering just like a handful of patterns in one video and then a lot of patterns in another video. I'm going to try to cover about the same amount of patterns as I did in the first part of this video, and then the third video in this series will have the rest of the patterns featured in the book. So in this video, we're going to be looking at these 2 sections, part of this section, and the entire In the Water section. But before we get started working on the patterns in today's sections of the book, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about something I've been struggling with, and that is just rewriting and writing patterns in general. So I am very grateful to be able to have this book to kind of show me the ropes of like what's going on in patterns. But what I'm even more grateful for is for resources like Skillshare. Skillshare has been super gracious to sponsor today's video and give me a code so that I can try out some of their classes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in today's video. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. Skillshare can help you take your career, your skills, hobbies, passions, or side hustles to the next level. Skillshare has just about every topic you can think of, from crafts and DIYs to film and video, marketing and business, and so much more. I was super excited to find loads of classes that I'm interested in, from learning to crochet with plastic bags to learning more tips and tricks about writing my own patterns. This month, Skillshare is focusing on the theme of creativity as a practice. When we get creative, we tap into the best side of ourselves. And the more you exercise and build your craft, like a muscle, the more you grow creatively in any discipline that excites you. It's all about making the choice to grow, learn, and nurture your creative practices. And that's what Skillshare is here to help you do. The first 500 people to use the link in the description under this video will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So go ahead, click that link, and get started today. Hey guys, so we're back. We're done crocheting in today's video, and I'm going to start to show you the different plushies that I crocheted in the water and part of the on the farm part of this pattern book and give you my thoughts. And later in the video, we'll talk about which patterns take the least amount of time and which patterns take the most amount of time. We'll also compare those in the order that we put them in for the on the land section. So I'll be adding to that kind of range of plushies that we had arranged in the first video from least amount of time to longest amount of time. We'll be adding the plushies that we make in these sections to that same range so that we have a better idea of what that looks like. So the first pattern in the water is the Whimsical Whale. And I made my whale in similar colors to Jenna. I chose like a teal blue and a white, and I just really love the size that this comes out to. I was really excited that it is no-sew, of course, because all the patterns in the book are no-sew, but also just like the different techniques that we use to make the flippers versus the back fins. So the back fins are crocheted separately and then crocheted into the body, where the front fins are just crocheted off the row, so you don't have to crochet them into the row like you would with the fins because they're a separate piece. These are just made when you're in the row directly. So those were really, really cool techniques to have in this one, and not as many parts as the previous video where we were having to make like 4 limbs for each animal and maybe some ears as well. This one was relatively less work because we're making less parts to assemble it together when we're crocheting the body. Another thing that I wanted to mention is I've never had a whale pattern of this size. The only other whale pattern that I think I've used in the past is from Coffee and Crochet 01, and it's a free pattern on her Instagram, and it's like a stress ball sized whale. So this is a nice change from that size. This is probably double the size of that whale, and it's really cute, and I really enjoyed this pattern. The next pattern featured in the book is the Friendly Frog pattern, and here is how mine turned out. Very similar colors to the ones that she used, except I believe for both this one and the whale, I'm using Big Twist Posh / Big Twist Baby Bear for the colors instead of Premier Parfait Chunky. So we have similar, a mint color and the white as she does in her photos, as well as the really light pink blush. And I think this frog was very unique. I'm not used to seeing frogs that are kind of like a cylinder shape, kind of like this one is. It stands up really tall. A lot of the frogs that I see are either like the leggy froggies. That's kind of what I'm used to. And I'm also used to the Chubby Froggies or Ted the Thick Toad by Crochet, which is a free pattern on Instagram. So we have some different frogs mentioned, obviously, and this one is a lot different from what I'm used to seeing. Like I said, it's definitely a different take on what a frog looks like. I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of this style of representing a frog. What I also wanted to mention about my frog that's a little different is I embroidered a smile on it instead of just having a straight mouth line across where the color changes. The way that I did this was I just inserted the black embroidery yarn a row above where that color changes, inserted the other side of that yarn on the same row across where I wanted the mouth to finish, and then I came back through in the middle here and kind of like looped the yarn around the mouth so that it would come down a little bit like that. I'm sure that makes a lot more sense for people who have embroidered mouths before. It's kind of hard to explain without having like a visual representation of me actually doing it. So I hope I didn't confuse anybody. I hope you guys know what I'm talking about there. The next pattern featured in the book is the Terrific Turtle. And again, I went with basically the same colors as Jenna, doing the mint green and the light pink. I really like how it turned out. The only thing that I noticed that was a little weird for me was just that even though the head is no-sew, you attach it without sewing it on, but if you want it to not like flop over like this, like it wants to flop a lot, you have to go back and kind of reinforce your assembly there by sewing into the shell so that it doesn't just flop over constantly. The way that I did it was I sewed it to the shell back and forth 2 times until the head was like kind of in the right position and didn't want to move much. It's definitely up to your preference. If you don't really care that the turtle's head is like flopping around or is more susceptible to moving, then you don't have to do that step. But I definitely like the appearance of it just like being a little bit more upright, like the turtle is actively walking instead of sleeping. The next pattern in the water section is the Mighty Mallard, and this one was really exciting to me because mallards are always super popular at markets whenever I have them. And this is how mine came out. Definitely more muted colors than Jenna's. I don't have like a really nice rich chocolate brown right now. I'm like running really low on those supplies. So I ended up going with oyster mushroom. That's this color in Big Twist Posh. And we also have a green, a light yellow, and a white. All of that from Big Twist Posh Baby Bear. So this is really cute and I love how it looks. I love that it's like a huggable plushie. And I love, that you can either have the wings coming forward and you can flap the wings as well as the legs. You can have them like sitting up like this. You can have them splayed out behind him like a sploot. And it's just really cute and I think it'll be very popular. It'll also be nice to offer a mallard in a different price range than some of my customers are used to. I think this one would be a little bit cheaper than the snoozing goose that I typically offer at markets. So the snoozing goose is a free pattern by Crochet, but that one typically sells very quickly if I have a mallard in that pattern. And so I try to keep them stocked up, but some people aren't super comfortable with the price of those snoozing gooses just because it's a little bit more involved and takes a little bit longer. I imagine that these might be similarly priced or less expensive to sell at markets since they're no-sew. The crochet snoozing goose pattern is also no-sew. It's just like bigger all together. It's a bigger final product, so I think it just takes a little bit more time to do that. The next pattern is the Agile Axolotl, and this is a pattern that I'm very familiar with because it's a pattern that Jenna has up on her YouTube channel for free. I'm not sure if it's still up since releasing the book, but it was definitely free prior to releasing the book. But that is all really exciting because it's a market make that is super popular. Kiddos really like their axolotls, especially axolotls that look like Minecraft axolotls. They like the orientation of the axolotl like standing on its little stubby feet, which reminds them of Minecraft. But this is almost identical to the YouTube pattern that she has available. I don't think anything really changed here. It's just a written version of it. And I am really excited because this is the first time that I used some sparkly sinker eyes on this axolotl pattern because I made it a little bigger than I normally do too. Normally I work with Premier Parfait Chunky, but this time I used Premier Gumdrop Chenille to make it, and it comes out a little bigger. So I ended up putting some pretty green sinker eyes in there, and I just love that sinker eyes, like the pupil seems to like follow you around the room as you rotate the head of the axolotl, so that is super cute. And I also just love these colors together, this mint green with like this teal color for the fins and the spine back here. It's all really, really cute, and this is an awesome pattern for markets. As I was saying earlier, people really like to purchase these. The next pattern in the book is the Joyous Jellyfish, and mine looks a little bit different from hers, mainly because I use different eyes, and I think I positioned them a little bit differently than she does as well. So I did these pretty white pupil sparkly iris eyes, and I think it kind of looks really cool. Like it it makes me think of like maybe a jellyfish that you would find like deep, deep, deep down in the ocean that maybe they wouldn't like have great vision. So maybe it's like a blind jellyfish. Here's my finished jellyfish. I will note that the way that my fins look really different to hers. I think it's specifically because her photo has the jellyfish like sitting down like this. So the tentacles are definitely they look different than mine do in person as well as on camera. When it's suspended in the air like this, you can tell that there's not tentacles on like the outside layer of the bottom of the body here. And that is just the way that it's constructed. There's not really much I can do about that unless I was to add to the pattern to add tentacles so that there's multiple layers. But you know, it doesn't really bother me too much. I was initially kind of surprised that it's not as like filled out at the bottom with the tentacles. I kind of wish they were kind of more sporadically placed, so maybe like you'd have like 3 or 4 tentacles in one row and then in another row maybe like some more tentacles so that they look a little bit more layered than they do here. But I'm not super mad about it. It's still cute. It's a really unique look to this pattern. It just reads a little bit more like a squid because of like the shape. You've got like the robust top of the jellyfish and then it kind of like tapers off to be really skinny at the bottom, and I think that's why it reminds me of a squid. But overall, I really do like the pattern and it's really cute. The last pattern in this section is the Fabulous Fish. I used the same color as Jenna, so I picked a orange like goldfish color, and this is how mine turned out. I do want to note a couple things. I wasn't expecting the pattern to start from the back of the fish because all of the other patterns so far in the book have started from the very front of the body of the creatures that we've been working on, but this one starts at the back so that you can create like this kind of heart shape for the tail. Another thing that I want to note, which isn't a huge deal, but it's definitely noticeable for me, is that the heart shape isn't like completely upright. It's kind of like tilted to the side the way that I had assembled it. I don't know if that's on purpose or if there's like a certain way you need to like orient the fins together when you connect them, or what you're supposed to do to make that tail like a little bit more upright instead of like off to the side like this one is. Naturally in life, when you would see a fish, their tail probably wouldn't be perfectly upright unless they're like not moving at all, but it kind of gives the impression that the fish is like swishing its tail maybe. So it's not a huge deal. It's just something that I worry that if I was to make more of these at market, I wouldn't be able to keep it consistent because there's not like a great note in the pattern that tells you like which stitch specifically, or how to orient it, or there's like not a note in the pattern that tells you like, hey, if you don't pick a specific stitch in this row, it's not going to face the right way, something like that. Like, I just think it's just missing a little bit extra attention in that area of the pattern so that if it is supposed to be upright, it's easier to make it so. So that finishes off the in the water section, and before we get into like how long each of these took me and arranging them together with the first section of the video, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the patterns that I made from the on the farm section as well. I think I got through the majority of these patterns. I think there's just 3 patterns total in this section that I didn't get to. So those patterns will be featured in the next part of this video, so part 3. So the first pattern in the on the farm section is the Cuddly Cow. I followed the same similar color scheme to Jenna, except I did like a white instead of a like light brown here. I really like how mine turned out. I will mention, and I mentioned this in the last video as well, it's just kind of difficult for me to make my color changes really clean. I know that there's like different techniques that you can use to like use scissors or some sort of tool to like push different pieces of yarn over or push them in so that you can't see the messy parts of the color change as clearly as you do here, but I kind of just wish there was like a tutorial or a hack or something out there to really show you how to make your color changes pretty and not messy. The next pattern in the book is the bold bunny pattern. I chose to make mine in brown. And I like how it turned out. I especially think it's kind of cute that the ears are like really fun to fidget with, and you can have them like play peekaboo with your rabbit if you want to, or you can just lay them out flat on top of the body like this. You can also probably like prop them up so that they curve a little bit more too. It's a really nice toy to play with, and I'm sure that kiddos that like to fidget with things and interact with toys would really like this pattern as well if you were selling it at markets or wanting to gift it to somebody who has children. The next pattern in the book is the darling dog pattern, which kind of reminds me of a pug. So I made this one in not the same colors for once in this video. I just did dark brown with this light cream color, and the collar is also a different color than it is in her book as well. I chose Lagoon by Premier Parfait Chunky, and I like how it turned out. I just am kind of bummed out that it isn't a different type of dog. I feel like the only dog this really reads as is a pug or like a bulldog. I guess it's just not my cup of tea, like specifically this face shape for the dog. It doesn't read as like cute as I would typically expect a dog to look. And yeah, I kind of wish it was a little less like the templated pattern throughout this book of just like, this is the face shape and we're just gonna color change in different areas. The next pattern featured in the book is the Cheerful Chick, and mine will look a little bit different just because I used Bernat instead of Premier Parfait. So with Bernat, typically when you're doing magic rings that have like a set number of stitches, they come out a little bit pointier looking than with other yarns. So mine looks a little bit longer and taller than the one in the book, but I still think it came out really cute. And this is a really nice pattern if you're looking for a market prep friendly pattern that you can make a bunch of these. And of course you can make them a lot smaller too if you're using Premier Parfait Chunky, or if you're using like a velvet yarn, they can be even smaller, perhaps even keychain sized. So those are really exciting things that I wanted to mention about this pattern. Next up, we have Mysterious Mouse, and with this pattern, it reminded me a lot of the opossum pattern, just without the color changes. We color change for the feet as well as the ears, the nose, and the tail, which is similar to what the opossum is. It's just missing that face color being different from the body color here. So it's essentially the same pattern, just with different color changes. I think it's still really cute and reads as a mouse. It's nice to have different options for different color changes that you can make to make the same pattern slightly different, but it's ultimately the same pattern as the opossum pattern. Finally, the last pattern that will be featured in this video is the Peaceful Pig pattern. And I made mine using Elise Velatuo yarn as well as Baby Bee yarn in, I think the shade range is called Snugs and Kisses. I like how this pig turned out, but again, it's really similar to the other patterns that we've already featured in the video. We're just placing color changes a little bit differently. And then at the end of the pattern, you also kind of have to like twist the tail a little so that it gets that curly like pig twist tail that we all know and love. But ultimately very similar to the other patterns that we've already showcased in the first part of this video. It's just different color changes and different colors used overall. So now that I've shown you all of the patterns in the water section, as well as most of the patterns in the on the farm section, I'm going to rearrange them with the patterns that we showed in the first part of this video so that you can get an idea of which of these patterns is the shortest to make and which are the longest to make. All right, so as you can see, we do have some overlap in some areas here. Whenever there was a pattern that The total time to make it was exactly the same as another animal. I just went ahead and stacked those. And in those areas, it was specifically the platypus and the mouse at 19 minutes each. Those were exactly the same. The snake and the frog were each 27 minutes to make. The whale, axolotl, and jellyfish were all exactly 32 minutes to make, so there was a three-way tie there. And then the pig and the bear were 47 minutes to make each. The mallard and triceratops were each 48 minutes to make. The dog and the panda were 50 minutes to make. The fox and the turtle were 57 minutes to make. And finally, the last matchup was the brontosaur and the bunny were both 58 minutes to make. In some of these cases, it kind of goes along the same lines of it being basically the identical pattern, but with different color changes. For example, this dog and this panda pattern took the exact same amount of time. The only differences here are the color changes in the pattern. Other than that, the tail is also a little bit different, but ultimately it is the same pattern. In addition, the pig and the bear also matched up with the exact amount of time for both of them. And again, these patterns are nearly identical. The only differences are the color changes and the tail. It's actually kind of surprising that these two are matching up and the other two, the panda bear and the dog, are matching up because the dog has the same tail as the pig does and the panda bear has the same tail as this bear does. However, color changes really make a difference in how much time it takes to make something. And as you can see here, these two have way less color changes than the other two matching patterns do, hence that time matching up a little bit more than it would have with the basically identical pattern except with different color changes. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the least favorite patterns of mine from the in the water section, as well as my most favorite patterns from this section of the book as well. We will be going over my least and most favorite from the on the farm patterns, but that will be in part 3 of this video series and not in today's video because I haven't finished crocheting all the animals in that section yet. So first off, one of my least favorite patterns from this section would have to be the frog. I think it's mostly just because when I initially look at this, I don't really connect with this being a frog. It's just a little bit awkward of an orientation of the animal for me to really consider it as a frog. I definitely appreciate like the different take on a frog and having different options in case somebody doesn't like the options that I have that I like more. Another pattern that I didn't like as much in this section was just this fish pattern. It doesn't really stick with me. Same thing as the frog. Like, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't think a lot of people look for fish patterns either, and it's kind of hard for me to determine exactly why I don't like it. I'm not sure if it's just like the appearance of it or if it just like doesn't really wow me. If I'm not a fish person, I'm not really sure what it is, but I'm not a huge fan of this pattern either. And I think maybe part of it is because the tail was kind of hard to figure out as well, to get it like facing upright the way that it should be. But yeah, I can't really fault the pattern for either of these. They're still really nice patterns. I'm just not a huge fan of what they look like when you finish them. On to my favorites from this section of the book. The first one that I really liked was definitely the mallard pattern. I really love the different style of making a mallard. I feel like a lot of the times you see a mallard pattern that kind of looks like the chick pattern up here. It's kind of like that oval shape, whereas this one's more like laying down. You've got the extended neck portion as well as these like really floppy fidgetable, is that a word, feet. So it's really cute, and I love the wings as well. I love how it kind of just looks like he's like trying to swim through the water, even though you don't really see a duck doing that. They usually sit on top of the water, but I really enjoy this pattern, and I am definitely a huge fan of it. I will be making more of these in the future, and I'm sure they will do so well at markets too. Another pattern I was a huge fan of in this section is the turtle pattern. I am so glad that Jenna has a no-sew turtle in her repertoire of patterns now, because for the past 2.5 years, I've been making her strawberry sea turtle pattern, which is similar to this, except all of the parts you have to sew on. You sew the fins in, you sew the tail on, you sew the head on, and then the body is created to sew all those pieces into. But this is so much easier, and I like how it came out, like, so much more than those. I'm not like a huge fan of, in that other pattern, the head is just basically a big circle and it's kind of goofy looking. I really like this more because you've got that more unique turtle head shape that you know and love if you've seen a turtle in real life, and it's not as like cartoony as those are. And I also love that this one takes a lot less time than that does, and gets still just like a similar really nice finished product. The main difference here, other than what I've already mentioned, is like, I think the turtle that I mentioned before that I made, that sea turtle pattern, is a sea turtle pattern, so you have flippers instead of legs here. I'm sure you could still make this pattern with flippers instead of legs. You just like alter it to get a sort of teardrop shape instead of this leg shape, but I'm sure that people will still love this as well. And you could make strawberry turtles from this pattern as well. So yes, I am a huge fan of this turtle pattern. My final favorite from this section is definitely the axolotl pattern. It's amazing. I love how quick and easy it is to make these. Definitely a great pattern to have in your catalog if you're looking for great market preppable patterns that will be very popular. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and look out for a future video from me where we look at the final section of patterns in this book. We have to finish off, of course, the on the farm section, and then we'll go into what I think about those patterns, which of them are my favorite and which of them are my least favorite. And then, of course, we've got the final section in the book, which is in your tummy, I believe. They're all food amigurumi pieces. So definitely keep an eye out for that video when it comes out. And with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a like, comment down below which of these patterns that you have tried for yourself and which ones you like, which ones you dislike. Or if you're working on something else and you're just along for the ride, just to glean some insights about this book and whether or not you should get it, let me know what you're working on instead. And with all of that being said, I will see you guys next week. Bye.